mushroom capsules. I put mushrooms in everything every day. Ideally, you're getting 3 servings. We'll talk about this later, but 3 species a week for optimal health for immune function. So that's just some of the many thousands of phytonutrients found in these wonderful, colorful fruits and vegetables. All right. We could have an entire day or week specifically only on the microbiome and the emerging research that is just off the charts, extraordinarily fascinating. We are at the tip of the iceberg of what we know about the microbiome and how powerful it is, basically in every part of our body, every organ system, every mechanism of aging and cognition and immunity and on and on and on. But for purposes of keeping this shorter, we will just touch on it a little bit. So we have approximately 100 trillion microorganisms in our human GI tract, mostly bacteria. They are master regulators of immunity. They protect hosts against pathogens and undesirable microorganisms, and they produce thousands of metabolites also that contribute to health. So this illustration is of the potential mechanisms by which probiotics, resistant starch, and resistant proteins contribute to the mitigation of aging-related chronic low-grade inflammation by producing short-chain fatty acids, improving phagocytic activity, or directly reducing the production of pro-inflammatory cytokines. So I highly recommend you check out these articles. I'm happy to hopefully you could see it at the bottom, but these are really interesting articles about dysbiosis and short-chain fatty acids and all these different things that happen when you can take care of your microbiome. But again, in the sake of being super simple, which is really what I want to do today, is to distill all of this down. This is the simplest way to look at it. You take in fiber, right, which act as prebiotics, which means it's like the fuel that help increase the good bacteria in your gut and get rid of the pathogenic bacteria in your gut. Because what this was so fascinating to me, I don't know if you guys have heard this, I'm sure you have, but just to reiterate it, because it's so fascinating. 2 things. You know that your bone is not static, like you don't build your bones and then they degrade. No, your bones are constantly changing, fluxing. Osteoclasts and osteoblasts are constantly making bone and breaking down bone and making bone and breaking. So it's a very dynamic state. Well, obviously, as I said before from Dr. Greger's book, that we are constantly changing our bodies every day. It's mind-blowing. But the microbiome too, it's so interesting. If you travel somewhere, your microbiome shifts. Whatever you eat, it shifts. If you are around people, it's shifting. If you kiss someone, you're getting their microbiome, their bacteria coming, which is a very sexy, romantic way to change your microbiome. There are so many things that influence the microbiome, and it's constantly shifting. So if you're constantly trying to get in the healthy fiber, the healthy prebiotics, and you're building more of the healthy bacteria and it's proliferating, and then because of that, it's getting rid of the bad ones, you can ultimately impact your overall systemic health. And I find that so interesting. And these outcomes include reducing the inflammaging that we were talking about, which is a strong risk factor for premature mortality, morbidity, frailty, infections, and on and on and on. This was an old slide I found, which I think is so cute because so much has changed. I was looking at old talks because I got a new laptop, so I'm going through things, and you know how fun that is. And I just found a talk from 15 years ago or more. 18 years ago, I don't know, a long time ago. And I had benefits of fiber. And these were like the benefits that we were talking about back then. You know, it increases transit time, so things go through your GI tract faster. It minimizes your exposure to toxins because things get swept out. You know, it's like rotor-rooter, it collects things and takes it out. It removes heavy metals such as mercury. It removes excess sex hormones from the body like estrogen. It slows the absorption of glucose. It controls our rate of digestion. It enhances satiety, so it keeps you full. It increases or helps with weight loss. It reduces risk for colon cancer. And I was thinking these are major things and were so important, so exciting. But man, I mean, look at where the research has gone in 15 years. Oh, it's so exciting. Okay, so I'll say this, things have changed, but everything stays the same. If you go back to the real basic data, I was just explaining this the other day, how exciting it is that I'm deep diving back into healthspan the last few years, and I like to go back to what I was reading about 20, 30 years ago and how the real simple things stay the same. The most important things stay the same. I find that quite extraordinary. Like no one could still unseat that the fact that eating more fruits and vegetables is healthy, or that the gut microbiome is important for your immunity. Like all these things that are really, really basic, or that eating a lot of animals is bad for you, or that eating more beans is good for you. These things we just keep gathering data on why and validating all of the things. So listening to your gut instinct, pun intended, is a really helpful tool when it comes to analyzing new diet stuff, because there's so much noise out there. I'm constantly debunking these myths for my clients. There's so much noise. So go back to the basics. So this is a cool graphic about the hallmarks of aging and all the different the very many complex pathways and how it's related to the microbiome. But again, we're not going to get into all of this. I just thought it was a really cool graphic to show if you want to just take a peek while I have a sip of tea, which is also good for your microbiome. EGCG, epigallocatechin gallate in your green tea, very good for you. Okay. Here's another really cool graphic I found from another study. I highly recommend you check this one out too, on the short chain fatty acids. And look, it's like talking about all these different things that act like fiber. So there's a prebiotics, then there's a probiotics, which I guess the latest research on probiotics as capsules or as pills or stuff like that is that if you're lucky, you'll get the right dose of the right combination that will impact what you want it to impact. But still, the most important thing, everything seems to reiterate that the most important thing is the food and making sure you're getting plenty of different types of fiber, like the non-starch polysaccharides, the resistance oligosaccharides, the resistant starch. And then here's some other things like inulin, starch raffinose that you may have heard about.